Now let's look at how to communicate with your contractor what kind of materials you would like to use. And as you're deciding what to draw and what not to draw, here's the deal. You are drawing and making notes about what's called the envelope. And the envelope means all the surfaces that protect the building from the weather. So that means the roof, the wall, the doors and the windows. Those are all part of the envelope, and you're going to show the contractor how those will be made. And you'll also show other stuff on the outside of the building that's not necessarily envelope, but balconies, railings, chimneys, stuff like that. You will describe the materials with notes, and it can take a little bit of getting used to figure out just how to say this. We don't want to write a novel here. We want to use very short, terse, precise language. And the best thing to do is to go look at other drawings. Just collect examples of what other people have done. You could even do a Google image search if you don't have any in your files. And just see how architects and drafters describe these materials and try to copy their style. Then you will use thin lines, thin or very thin lines, to draw the siding and roofing and so forth. What you will notice is that some offices like to draw, think of it as like hatching. Some offices like to hatch just a part of a roof or a part of a siding and leave the rest of it open. Other offices like to fill in 100%, they just draw everything. And sometimes it's actually faster just to draw everything. Sometimes it's not. Here's an example out of our book where you notice in the front elevation in the lower right corner, he has drawn all of the siding and brick and shingling all the way across. And then in the other three elevations, he has drawn only part of those. And so you can kind of compare, you can compare and see what the difference is and how you like that. Now about hatching. Autocad provides some hatch patterns and not all hatch patterns. Isn't that handy? So if you're doing plain old composition shingles, there's a hatch pattern. It's called AR roof. If you're doing standing seam metal roof or tile or things like that, there's not a hatch pattern, so you draw your own using offset and copy and so forth. With various kinds of siding, there's not a hatch pattern, so you just use thin lines and draw your own. And you, as close as possible, you try to make it approximately to scale. For masonry products, there are often Autocad hatch patterns. There are brick hatch patterns. I think there's a CMU. CMU is concrete masonry unit, those plain gray concrete block things. For stone, you can use AutoCAD's gravel pattern. For plaster, for a stucco wall, you can use their AR, that A for architectural, AR sand hatch pattern. Now about the dimensions. We don't put very many dimensions on an elevation. We just put dimensions that are not given anyplace else. For example, you might want to dimension a roof overhang in both directions. And you might want to dimension the heights, maybe the finished floor, finished ceiling, or top of plate, top of plate. Oftentimes these elevations are given in a section drawing, and if they are, you would not repeat them here. In the past, you and I have talked about how if you draw a dimension in more than one place, and then you do a change order, and you change the dimension but you forget that you put it in two places and you only change one of the instances, you can wind up with two mismatched dimensions and a big old expensive problem. So we try to be very careful just to show dimensions one place. Pick one that you think is the most useful and go with that. Our contractor, and our framer especially, is interested in how high are the plates, where are the plates, how high are the studs, and so forth. So they will want to know those numbers. And they will also want to know things like how high is the chimney. They often want to know things like finished floor elevation, finished floor to finished ceiling. And you'll notice that, where did I put that? You'll notice that the finished floor lines up with the bottom of the door, which makes sense when you think about what a door looks like in a house. Oh, here it is. And now we are not going to draw a dashed line for our footing in our elevation that we're drawing today, but oftentimes you want to for whatever reason. So here's our author. He has shown where the footing sits under the ground relative to the house. Here's another example. And when you draw finished floor, finished ceiling, you use a heavy dashed line. Our author here has used a heavy, basically center line. You need to find out what they're using in your particular office, of course. And then where the ground runs in front of your house, you use a thick line, and this line is thicker than the wall layer. It's a ground plane, and it shows the grade line where the dirt runs next to your house. That's a thick line. Some drafters use hidden lines in a few places. If you have diagonal braces in your house for seismic bracing, you might want to use hidden lines to show where they go, in addition to putting that symbol on your floor plan. Some offices like to put hidden lines to show which side the door or window hinges on, and you'll notice this drafter does not. I'll show you an example of what that hinge line looks like. This one doesn't use hidden lines. They just show, here's a door, here's a window. Here are some examples of door drawings, and the one in the upper right with the hidden lines is a symbol that means hinge is over here. And you could think of these hidden lines as pointing, so they're pointing towards the hinged side. Some offices like to put those in their elevation views. Other offices don't, because they say, well, the door hinge is shown in the plan view, so we can already see what direction it's supposed to hinge. You don't give a lot of detail about your doors and windows. You don't give, let's see, where did I say that? You don't give the width of the thing or the location to the center, because remember, you've already given that in your floor plan. You might want to give a height, although there is a standard height for doors, so it may not be necessary. You may want to give a height to the window opening. You do not need to give details about just what kind of door and window is this, because you're going to have schedules, tables in your drawing that list such and such kind of door, such and such kind of window, and the schedule is where you get detailed. So here you're just giving them a general idea of where they go and what they look like.